This is Rumble, and I'm Michael Moore, and my special guest today is the incredibly wonderful, beloved cartoonist Tom Tomorrow, who goes actually by his birth name occasionally is Dan Perkins, but his stage name on the funny pages is Tom Tomorrow. I'm sure many of you have seen his cartoons, his strips over the years. And they are really of our time now. If you, depending on your age, they're the Doonesbury of this moment. If you're older, you might remember Jules Feiffer. It's a hard thing to do a comic strip from a position of satire, and to have it both political and funny, because oftentimes political kills the funny, and sometimes the funny diminishes the political, and so it's a very, very difficult trick to pull off. But for many, many years, Tom Tomorrow has both entertained us, made us think, got us angry at all the appropriate people. And we need this. We need both the laughs and the fight in us right now more than ever. And I welcome you to Rumble, Dan Perkins, Tom Tomorrow.
Hey, thank you very much for inviting me on.
No, thank you. Now, how many years have you been doing this? How long have I known you?
Oh, God.
When did we first meet?
Well, we first met in the mid-90s. You had a speaking gig up in New Haven. I think that's where we met. But I've been doing this since 1990, give or take, so way too long. I mean, I was, a young child. I was a prodigy. It was amazing because I couldn't possibly be this old.
It's not possible, right? It's with 30. So this would be like 30 years.
Yeah. And
this past year was 30 years since my first film, Roger Me. So we both kind of started doing this around the same year, and it. In the early years, I mean, first of all, how were you able to go from where you were in New Haven, I guess, at the time when you started?
I was in San Francisco when I started.
You were in San Francisco. So, and you grew up there. Like I said, you grew up in Iowa.
In Iowa, yeah.
As soon as I said San Francisco, the Midwestern, I had like a nun I used to have in school who was just beating me in the middle of my brain. As soon as I said that, he's from the Midwest.
I was trying to figure out how to politely correct the record.
The nuns have never left my head.
There you go.
So they're there to do their job, and I pulled that off pretty quick. But
so I've moved around a lot. I grew up in Iowa. I also grew up in Arkansas. I also lived in Georgia for a spell. I lived in Florida for a while. As an adult, I moved to San Francisco. I moved back to the East Coast for my ex-wife when she was not yet my wife. So I have lived in New Haven and New York City, basically, since I moved back.
And you're in New York now, so you're
indeed.
just actually a few blocks from where we're doing this. But we're doing this in respect of the pandemic. Do we respect this pandemic? I don't know if that's really the right thing to say.
In fear of the pandemic.
Yes, in fear of the pandemic. We're like 3 blocks away from each other. And yet we're sending this up to a satellite and bringing it back down in order to conduct this podcast.
I haven't seen a human being apart from people who work in the grocery store in a month.
Wow. Okay. Not that I want to top that, but I haven't left this apartment. I walked out once, like on the 5th day, and then I thought, no, that's it. So this is day 30. What is this? Day 36?
We're all going to be agoraphobic when this is over.
Is that what's going to happen? We're not going to go out.
We're not going to want to go out anymore. We will have retrained our brains. And also, Trump is talking about turning the economy back on as if there's some master switch in a lab, like in some old science fiction movie or something. But it's going to be a really slow thing. It's going to be a long time before we do the normal things that New Yorkers do again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, there's a big part of me that doesn't want to go back to normal. I have to admit, and politically, I certainly don't want to go back to what was called normal.
Right.
But just for people, the uninitiated, the people who have not seen the Tom Tomorrow cartoon strips over the years. And by the way, I have a link to the strip is called This Modern World, and I have the link for it on the podcast page here. And I'm going to be posting on my social media, so you can find it there on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. But also, if assuming that the last month hasn't made your brain atrophy too much, you can probably remember it's very easy. thismodernworld.com. And you can see Dan's strips. But for those who are not going to leave the podcast now and do that, can you give people just a kind of a sampling or an idea of this strip and how far you're willing to go to, as I've seen over the years, cross certain lines which is why I think you're so beloved by so many tens of thousands of people. So go ahead and have at it.
Oh boy.
I know. How do you describe something that is a visual?
Yeah.
A cartoon, over a microphone?
Honestly, I don't mean to deflect the question, but I think I have a harder time explaining it than people who read it. I mean, how would you explain it?
I would say that on any given week, it's a weekly strip, Dan will have approximately, I think, 6 panels.
Right.
3 and 3. And in each panel, there is something going on. Usually, my favorites are anytime you have Mr. and Mrs. America. We're just talking, but well, why is that? Why didn't the president go to the briefings? Well, I'll tell you why. And through their conversation, you realize the idiocy of what we're experiencing. That can also happen in Dan's strip with newscasters are great. It's just reading the news the way, imagine if they were just really reading it like they were completely honest of how they felt about what they were telling you, what was going on. And so it's 6 panels of a newscaster, perhaps, just kind of laying it out for you. And not necessarily on the nose laying it out, like explaining it to people who are, too dumb to get it. Actually, the newscaster is often dumb. And
well, they're often, my characters are often speaking in their own voice, and hopefully the satire comes through to the reader. But yeah, there's a tricky line where I'm not actually wanting to specifically spell it out. Right.
Well, yeah, but that's why this is such a smart comic strip. I mean, it really, if you do have to have a bit of brain matter to digest what's going on here, and a sense of irony and a sense of sardonic processing. But can you at least tell people about the Penguin?
Well, so I was just thinking that I should mention, it's the comic strip with the Penguin, and not the famous one that you're thinking of. But it's a penguin with sunglasses. Who, when I started doing this work, when I started doing the strip, it was all very based on the false reality of advertising and propaganda. And so my character, as I sort of just said, my characters did not directly say, "This is stupid. This is terrible. Why is this happening?" They would sort of say, "Oh, this is a great thing." And in the course of explaining why they thought it was great, I would explain to the reader why I did not think it was great. But at a certain point pretty early on, I wanted a character who could speak more directly to the audience in my voice. And I had always had a little thing for penguins. When I was a kid, I drew cartoon penguins, and so I didn't really give it a lot of thought. I just threw in this penguin who sort of seems to know that he's in a comic strip. He often breaks down the fourth wall and talks to the audience directly. And, it was just a useful addition. He doesn't actually show up that often anymore. Every now and again, I need him to come in. But I mean, I think, having said that, I think he might show up in the next couple of weeks because I have a more straightforward dialogue strip, sort of a talking head strip that I want to do about healthcare and about how this whole crisis has really shown what an insane mess our healthcare system is, and all the ridiculous rationalizations for it are just kind of out the window right now. And I'm still not confident that we're going to come to any sensible solution with this, but a healthcare system, this healthcare system that is inextricably linked to employment status, this weirdly, peculiarly American system, the underlying flaw of that becomes apparent when I don't know how many people have lost their job. I'm wanting to say like 10% of the workforce or something. I'm not sure, but massive unemployment right now. And so then the solution is sign up for COBRA or sign up for the ACA. But again, if you've just lost your job, where COBRA is very expensive. It's idiotic, and it's been, as a freelancer, it's been driving me crazy for 30 years. So maybe I was a canary in the coal mine, that I saw these problems earlier than a lot of people who didn't have to face this, who just got insurance through their job and thought it was great. But that whole line about if you like your insurance, you can keep it, we're going to see how well that works when, the flaw in that is, as long as you don't lose your job in a global pandemic.
Yeah. In the endorsement that Bernie made here of Biden, and they were both on the screen together, they agreed that they're going to have members of each of their campaigns sit down in a room and form like these ad hoc committees to maybe find some compromise. A chance for Bernie to have his imprint on the Biden presidency policies.
Well, I hope he can push him to the left, because it is literally a matter of survival.
Well, that's the idea.
It's literally a matter of survival for so many people right now.
Well, here's the sad news: is that there's one committee that they're going to form on criminal justice. There's one on immigration. There's one on wage inequality. There's one on student loans. One on climate change, and nothing on healthcare. And it was so disappointing to see this. That apparently, I'm sure Bernie pushed it, and I'm sure the Biden people were like, "No, that's a bridge too far for us." And it's so much, as you said, at the core of what people are struggling, just trying to get by. And while people have their unemployment, if they had a job right now and they were laid off, they're laid off right now. They're going to get decent unemployment from their state and federal government, but no health care. And at a time when we're in a health collapse, no health care.
Well, I think both of us have been looking at this society for a long time, and the absurdities of it. And I feel like right now, what America has become is what you and I saw coming, but only in our most ridiculous, far-fetched imaginings. Like what we are living right now. Satire is the art of taking something to the absurd extreme, and we are now living in the absurd extreme. It is impossible to come up with something that is crazier than what we're living through. And so it's, I don't know, almost nothing surprises me anymore, but I'm still capable of being disappointed.
Yeah, you're right. In our wildest imagination, in fact, you and I and Harold Moss one time, many, many years ago, fashioned a screenplay for animated film.
That we did.
and some of these, but we did it almost like science fiction animated political cartoon. And
what would we even do if we were doing that today? We anything we wrote would be out of date within. It'd be out of date. 5 minutes.
I think there are things back in that screenplay. If we pulled it out now, they've already happened. They happened 10 years ago, 5 years ago. They happened this week, and it's like the screenplay with got the most mold on it. But we thought we were so far gone. We were completely high. We weren't high, but I'm just saying that's the way it read. Now it looks like a PBS documentary.
Right. Right.
But so were you always, as a kid, what came first, the drawing or the politics? And, how did this all start?
I loved comic strips and comic books as a kid.
You buy comic books? Yeah.
Yeah. And
what were you in love with comic book wise?
Well, the comic strip that I was in love with was Peanuts by Charles Schulz. Just still great. And then when I was a little bit older, Doonesbury. So I think Gary Trudeau sort of showed me a way that you could combine politics and comic strips without going the sort of traditional single panel editorial cartoon route. And then when I started doing it, I found that what I wanted to do was write what are effectively little skits. I mean, the things I do, you could do them on stage at a Upright Citizens Brigade or something. But they're in comic form, but they're very wordy, as people often point out to me.
Yes, there are, but that's what makes it so great. How do you write so small and get all those words in there?
It's the magic of computers.
Really? What did you do before computers?
I hand lettered, working at a larger size.
Less words, right? Less words.
No, I just worked at a larger size and shrunk it down when it ran.
Have you ever had the situation that Gary Trudeau has had for his whole life with being banned or them not running a strip or somebody not liking what you've written?
I've had fewer of those incidents because my work. I mean, Doonesbury ran or still runs in daily newspapers. I got my start in the alternative press, which gave me a lot more leeway. There were a few things here and there that people objected to, but I haven't ever had that, that sort of because of the sort of controversies that Trudeau goes through, the readers of the all weeklies were less likely. I mean, people get offended by things all the time, but mostly the editors stood by me. Now, unfortunately, the whole all-weekly industry was on its last legs anyway, and I've lost several papers in the past month because this has just been the final straw for them.
Wow. So right now you come out, This Modern World, with Tom Tomorrow comes out on Mondays on the Daily Kos, right?
Right.
And then on Tuesdays on the Nib,
right?
NIB. So those are the ones people can always go to read Tom Tomorrow, This Modern World, right?
Yep.
But I've seen your work in the past in other magazines, and certainly, like you said, the alternative weeklies. What has happened to cartooning in terms of the cartoon strip, in terms of the comic strip?
There's still the Nib. That side is a very good site to check out for a wider range of younger cartoonists. That's run by another cartoonist, a friend of mine named Matt Bors, who has done a really good job of just creating this thing. He thought, we needed a new space for comics, and he made it happen. He found two different tech billionaires who funded him and dumped him, and now he's entirely independent, but he is still publishing and still paying cartoonists.
Yeah. I'm guessing there's not a lot of money in being a cartoonist.
There are probably more profitable professions.
Right. So that being the case, how does it, let's say there's a young person listening to this right now, loves to draw, maybe has their own cartoon strip. What kind of advice do you give them in terms of, they must come up to you or they run into you, or they write you and they say, I want to do this. How fast do you try to talk them out of it?
Well, I think if you are compelled to do something, you're going to do it. And I certainly would not ever be the person to talk someone out of their dreams like that. And I think if it's really what you want to do, you'll find a way to do it. But honestly, the landscape is changing so quickly, and it's, I wish I had answers to that right now. My universe is kind of contracting, and I'm not sure what that even means for me in the long term, because it's been way too long since I've had any other sort of job. I can't even imagine what else I would be qualified to do. But that doesn't really answer the question. I guess. No,
I think you answered it. If you want to do whatever you want to do, you should follow your dream and not think about whether or not it's going to be a job or
follow the dream, but maybe also have a way of making a living. I mean, this is just the traditional problem confronting creative people. It's why every actor has spent time as a waiter.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't have to be a waiter. I washed dishes at a country club. I got a job as one of those automatic dishwasher things where you close it all down. I can't tell you how many times I burned my forearm on that dishwashing apparatus. But yeah, no, if from I dropped out of college after about a year and a half, and right away I know, what am I going to do to earn money? So I did that. I was a dishwasher. Then I got a job as a night janitor in a high school. Buffing the floors. I love that buffing machine. It was so much fun. And but I wanted to write. That was the first thing I wanted to do. I wanted to start an alternative newspaper and do journalism. And I eventually, by the time I was in my early 20s, I was able to do that. But yeah, no, I know what you mean here.
Yeah, that was the moment for it. I also dropped out of school and wasn't sure what I wanted to do exactly, but I knew I wanted to write or make cartoons or something. I wanted a better life, a richer life than seemed, and by richer I mean more creative, more fulfilling, than seemed possible when I was kind of stuck in Iowa. So I ended up, I taught myself, there used to be able to make a living just doing word processing. Like it was a weird skill because not everyone was computer literate, and you could make a decent income as a temp doing that sort of thing. So I moved to San Francisco and supported myself as an office temp for a long time.
How are you doing through this whole thing? Because I know I can hear it. See, I know you, so I can hear it in your voice. I'm worried that you're just fading into the wallpaper there, or something. What? Because well, go ahead. I mean, I'm not a therapist, but I play one on the podcast here. But I'm also going crazy. But so go ahead. You're crazy first.
Well, we could debate that. But
I'm saying you go first. I hope to win the crazy award.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. I had a lot of things up in the air, and then suddenly the world shut down. And there's this old episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation that I keep thinking of, where Beverly Crusher is stuck in some alternate universe, and it contracts around her so that the known universe exists of the Starship Enterprise. And right now am feeling like the known universe consists of my apartment, I'm just like, and I like my apartment fine. So I don't know. I'm Skyping with friends a lot. I'm
That's good.
Cooking.
Stay in touch with people.
Cooking a lot more. I spend a lot of time staring at Twitter, which is not good for mental health, but it is also a thing that sort of feeds my specific creativity. It helps me sort of keep an eye on what's going on and formulate my own thoughts. I spend several days a week writing and drawing the cartoon. But it is all just a little bit timeless right now. It is shut down. I have a 16-year-old son who normally would be visiting me every other weekend and is sort of part of what connects me to the world. So now we've just been texting a lot. I have been watching I've been kind of catching up on my old 1950s really bad science fiction B movies. This Island Earth. I watched a really strange one called Red Planet Mars, which is basically a Cold War thing. A guy makes sort of contact with unseen Martians. It's just through this coded thing. And they start quoting scripture at him. And it proves the existence of the Christian God. The Soviet Union collapses. The patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church becomes the new leader of the Soviet Union. And apparently it ushers in a whole new generation a whole new era of peace and prosperity on the planet Earth. And I wouldn't say it's a interesting or good movie by any means, but it was the most fascinating thing that I've seen in a while, just as a period piece. And I myself am vastly amused by this. I love these old strange movies. I don't really watch Mystery Science Theater because I have my own running dialogue and going on in my head when I'm watching these things. And that was a really strange one. So I'm doing things like that, exploring the weirdest old science fiction movies I can find on YouTube.
Except, I've been doing similar things too. And I think yesterday on Easter, or was it? Yeah, Sunday on Easter.
What day is today?
I don't even know what day it is. I don't even know. Don't ask me.
Okay, I literally had to look at my computer. Today's Monday.
No, seriously,
it's Sunday was Easter.
It's not Sunday. No.
Yesterday was
Easter
Sunday.
Yes, Easter was Sunday. Yes.
Oh my God!
And I rewatched all the Jesus films that I hadn't seen since I was a child. The Greatest Story Ever Told, King of Kings. There was this great neo-realist Italian film from it might be from the 50s or maybe the early 60s, called The Gospel According to St. Matthew, but it's very dark and very, very raw. And then I ran across this thing called Mary Magdalene. Have you heard of this film? It came out last year, except it didn't come out. It stars as Jesus, Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, no, I have not heard of this.
Thought, that's got to be interesting. You think if you've seen Joker, he's on top of that police car looking like Jesus. And he plays Jesus, and Rooney Mara plays Mary Magdalene. And the film is written by two women, and it tells the sort of the Jesus story and the Mary Magdalene story from the perspective of women. And what if men hadn't written the Bible? What if there had been a woman's voice somewhere in there? And it was such an amazing film. I couldn't take my eyes off it. It was so good. It was on Showtime. I tried to find out why we didn't hear this film, why in the year that Joaquin wins the Oscar for Joker, he's also Jesus, but none of us had heard of that. And I think that what happened was the film it was one of the films that got buried and died. That it finished right after Harvey Weinstein had been removed and then arrested. and somehow they got the rights to show it on cable, and it's maybe one of the best Jesus stories I've ever seen. So honest and full of empathy.
So you're suggesting that instead of bad movies, I should watch good movies.
Well, or find the hidden gems.
Interesting concept.
Yes, yeah. Well, I'm just saying it might sound a little happier. Because there are these. You found a hidden gem in Red Planet Mars, but there's another one I ran across. Dodsworth. Have you ever heard of Dodsworth?
Nope.
Oh my God, it's such a great film. And then I can't remember the other one that I had on my little list here, but TCM, Turner Classic Movies. It's worth it in the morning just seeing what they're playing that day.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, man, they have great stuff, or the old classics like my favorite films like Clockwork Orange or Taxi Driver.
Right.
Life of Brian.
That would be the next step also, is to revisit classics like that. So one that sort of falls somewhere in the middle that I did rewatch recently is John Carpenter's Escape from New York.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow the title seemed resonant in this moment.
Right. What's going to happen when they finally release us? When we leave our apartments here?
I have no idea. What's
that going to look like?
Are you going to go to movie theaters again?
I will not right away.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait and see how many people die going to the movies.
I feel like it just has to be a really gradual staged thing. I mean, all we're doing right now, people have to keep in mind, is trying to flatten the immediate rate of infection so that the healthcare system is not entirely overwhelmed. We're not actually doing anything. There is no vaccine. There is no cure. There's hydroxychloroquine. Is that right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, that's right.
That Trump has somehow gotten fixated on, and so then it has become this matter of ideology, with all the red hat types saying, "Well, there's this fabulous drug, and this is the cure," and so this has been an interesting thing, and I assume you've been keeping track of this too. Is the weird Fox News Trump loyalist response to this? I mean, here we are in New York, and there are mobile morgues. There are hospital tents in Central Park, and
they were burying coffins on Hart Island,
and
in the city here.
They're trying, it's if you actually read the newspaper, if you actually read like that thing the Times just published on the timeline leading up to the 70 days that Trump wasted. It's just undeniable that we could have been in a much better situation if he had taken this seriously much sooner. And so it becomes just another partisan battle, except that, again, it's like something in a cartoon of mine where one side is saying, hello, science and facts, and the other side is doing everything possible to deny the reality that is just right out on the street, that is right out in everyone's lives. Everyone at this point knows someone who has gotten sick, or someone who knows someone who has gotten sick. It's just out there, and trying to downplay it and say, oh, it's just the flu, when it's this devastating illness that apparently can mess your body up for the rest of your life. But it's become the only similar thing I can think of, until there's a zombie apocalypse and one side is denying the fact that there are zombies. The only similar thing that I can think of, is global warming. This clear and existential threat that the people who believe in science are concerned about, and the people who have been conditioned for the last 30 or 40 years not to believe in science think is a hoax, except it's playing out in real time over the course of 2 months.
Yeah. Okay, so we don't know what's going to happen when we open up the door here, step out onto the sidewalk, and when things are supposedly bad.
I mean, what's going to be? We're probably going to keep wearing face masks when we go outside. We're probably okay. So, like, let's say that the restaurants in the neighborhood start to slowly reopen. They'll have to do it at like half capacity, quarter capacity, and you know how hard it is to get a reservation in New York City anyway. So like, you're probably not going to even be able to go to restaurants when they do reopen.
They're going to have to remove half their tables,
at least half their tables.
And so that means they won't. The margin of making money doing a restaurant is very thin, and they won't. Removing those tables means removing the chance to pay their bills.
Yeah,
basically,
which means a lot of places go out of business.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, what we need a functional government. We need a massive Keynesian stimulus program that is even beyond this first round that they just went through. Really, we just in Canada right now, I think it is about a 4-month program here. So forgive me if I'm getting the details wrong, but I believe they are just basically sending everyone a $2,000 a month check for 4 months just to try to keep their economy afloat. And we kind of need something that big
because,
just bailing out the airlines and the fucking cruise ship industry and sort of leaving everyone else to fend for themselves is really not going to cut it.
Right.
And they're trying, tangential thought, and they're trying to kill the post office.
Oh, no, I haven't heard that. Is that true?
Have you not been? Yeah, no,
no, I get halfway through the news and I turn it off.
So the post office is
then on the second half of the news
going to go broke in about a month, and Trump has refused to give it any funding. And what's maddening about this is the post office would be an entirely self-sustaining entity, but Republicans in 2006 passed a sort of poison pill mandate that the post office has to pre-fund pension plans for 75 years.
Oh, no.
So they had to set aside this massive amount of money. And I believe I have read that then that money is not even there for the pension funds because they've been dipping into it to pay down the national debt.
The thing is, if you lose the post office, I mean, this was set up probably back during the time of Eisenhower. The post office is your only daily contact with your federal United States government.
Right.
There is a person from the federal government who visits you 6 days a week. And in the past, years and years ago, when they were again having trouble funding the post office, I think it was Eisenhower, but somebody can write in and tell me who came up with this brilliant idea. He said that there is a post office in every single neighborhood in America. The smallest village, a village may have 200 people, and there's a post office. There's a zip code.
For a lot of rural areas, the post office, even in the age of Amazon and UPS, UPS and FedEx and so forth, even now the post office in rural areas often carries those packages the last mile.
Right.
If we privatize the post office, a lot of rural communities are just going to be in deep trouble.
Absolutely. The way that this was put forth, decades ago was that if we were in a national emergency and we needed to get something to every American citizen, be that medicine, be that, whatever, there's the postal system allows the government to get something to every single American the next day.
Right.
The next day, maybe in some far out places, 2 days, but literally.
Imagine if they were just delivering face masks to everybody right now.
Yes. Or when the new self-administered test that you could just test yourself from home, whether to see whether you have it,
right,
or if you've already had it, which means you may be immune, that little test kit can be sent to every single American through the infrastructure that exists today and can get to everybody within the next 24 to 48 hours. Isn't that amazing? Why you would want to let that particular system die when it's our only connection together, all 330 million of us, is this thing that we like to make jokes about, we like to complain about, you know, the junk mail,
right,
all the stuff. But think about that, you know, I think we were one of the first countries, I think even before the U.S. existed as a country, there was a system set up so that you could communicate to any other American, no matter where that American lived. And it was kind of brilliant at the time to think that we could do this. I'm sad to hear that there's any kind of talk about the just letting the post office go. That would be, it should be considered a national security risk. Anybody who's talking about doing that.
There are sort of two theories on this right now. One is that Trump doesn't want people to be able to vote by mail. And that is even...
Oh, there you go.
I don't know. That's even a little...
Okay,
I'm not sure if that's smart. That's even a little bit of a stretch for me.
It gave me a little shot of adrenaline, so that's okay. It's gone.
But the theory that I find, I mean, maybe there's a little bit of that, but the theory that I find a lot more plausible is that Amazon relies on the post office and Trump just has this personal feud with Bezos. Okay. And he just sees this as a way to fuck over his this guy that he doesn't like. And, you know, that is all he is thinking about because everything in his brain comes down to, you know, is it good for me? Is it bad for me? Like, this is a man who, you know, I don't think he's barely expressed condolences for the victims of the virus. But we hear about how high his ratings are all the time. Have you been subjecting yourselves to these nightly shit shows?
Yes, I do. I force myself to watch them, if only because if I start at some point during the day, every day I always give up. At some point during every day, I just go, fuck it. I'm out of this. I can't fight this. I don't want to do this anymore. This is too insane. I'm just going to try to have some fun that's left in the life I have.
Right.
And then I get over that by turning on the Trump nightly, as you said, the shit show, the press conference, which is, I guess, his replacement for his rallies. And boy, and I force myself through the entire, it's sometimes 90.
I know.
120 minutes.
I've done a lot of them, but sometimes I give myself a mental health break.
Yeah, no, I just go into my podcast studio. I'm like, then I'm fired up.
Yeah.
I've been juiced up and I'm ready to go because but let me tell you, to be honest, I also watch his press conferences to observe the mad genius of the way he works and why it has worked with so many tens of millions of people.
It's a very simplistic genius, you know?
Yeah, but maybe that's the point.
Sort of an idiot savant genius.
Yeah, yes. He devolved it to a point to where in its simplicity, it had a mad beauty.
I mean, one of his things is nicknames, and I did a joke about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago where I had him saying, "Oh, I know what to do. I'll give the virus a nickname. I'll call it the crooked coronavirus." And I got the wrong nickname, but he is in fact calling it the invisible enemy. He did in fact give it a nickname.
The invisible enemy, yes. You know, he gave me a nickname.
Of course he did. What was that?
Well, see, again, this bothers me because I often say to people, you know, Trump, a lot of times you got to listen carefully because he's often telling the truth. You know, when he says that you could shoot a guy in the middle of Fifth Avenue and get away with it, or any of a number of things. In this case, the nickname had a big kernel of truth to it. My nickname is Sloppy Mike.
Jesus. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
No, how do you fight that? I mean, well, okay. Again, another moment of truth.
But I interrupted you. You were talking about his watching them for his genius.
No, well, I just think that as he, what we would call, you know, dumbs it down or whatever. That even doesn't disservice to that term. he goes to a place where it's like it part of it is the way you have to, when you're passing a car wreck, you say don't look, and you have to look.
Yeah.
The way that his cadence and his whole delivery, and even when he's reading from the prompter, he'll come across a line
that he's reading for the first time, and he says, "Oh yes, that is true."
And in his head, he goes, "Yeah, that's a good line." Oh, yes. Wait a minute, I'm saying that line.
He does that all the time. I know,
all the time. It's almost like Tourette's with him. That and you can now. I play a little game where I'm I'm listening to a line, listening. Oh, here it goes. It just hit repeat. Hang on, here it comes. There it goes. He just says it again. It's there was a famous comedian once who loved to, like, when he got a big laugh with a line, he'd repeat the line again because he so enjoyed the laugh he got, and then suddenly the woman had no clothes. And the audience laughs. She had no clothes. Another laugh, but not as loud the second time.
Right.
And now he's upset because it didn't go as well as it did the first time. So he says it a third time. She had no clothes. And by that time,
I feel like I can almost guess who this is just from but I'm not going to.
I know. I sort of screwed it up. I went halfway into his voice, but he's such a nice guy. I do not want to criticize his comedy. It's not in my.
I understand.
You understand? Okay, good. But I so wanted to tell him more than once that, you're so funny. Let it go on the first one. You get a big laugh, you get applause, go to the next one, Right. I think there's probably something that's in all of us that all of us want to be loved. And so when you get some love, what do you want? More of it. It's like maybe it's best to be satisfied with that wonderful love that was just expressed to you, in this case from the audience.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think with Trump, I always took him seriously. I said right away, as soon as he gave that first speech of his when he came down the golden escalator and called Mexicans rapists and drug dealers and criminals, and then 4 or 5 days later, NBC fires him, and everybody's that's the end of Trump. And I'm like, no, he's going to be the Republican nominee.
No, you were on this early, and you saw it early. I didn't even mention him in a cartoon until about 3 weeks after the escalator because it just felt like a waste of time. I was just like, oh God, really? I have to do cartoons about this guy? There's no way he's going to last. But I will, in my own defense, I will say, when it came down to the election, I had a conversation with a cartoonist friend because the way, you have to finish the cartoon before, what the results of the election are going to be in weeks like that, which is always, you're doing it before, but it's going to run after. And that's a tricky deadline to hit. And my friend was saying, well, come on, Hillary's going to win. You might as well just do the cartoon. It's obvious Hillary's going to win. And I was just like, I'm not so sure of that. I don't have that confidence. I did a cartoon that basically was just about, I don't know what's going to have happened when you're reading this cartoon. I think I did it as a multiple choice or something like that, because I wasn't as confident as you that he was going to win or could win, but I did believe that it wasn't guaranteed that he was going to lose.
Yeah. See, with me, I don't have any special clairvoyance thing going on here. I watched The Apprentice. And I understood why that show, he did 14 seasons of it.
Yeah.
I've done 4 seasons of my TV shows.
Right.
Anybody gets 14 seasons, they're there for a reason.
And don't we all owe Mark Burnett just such a huge debt of gratitude at this point?
Yes. We're talking about the creator, an executive producer of this thing. Well, he, and also who was the head of NBC at the time?
Oh, yeah.
Was that Zucker? Did Zucker put him on the air?
I'm not sure.
But they were smart in the sense that they knew that especially the middle of the country or anywhere from the Hudson River to Interstate 5 would love the show, and they did. And so I wasn't surprised that people right from the beginning wanted this TV star. We're kind of, I mean, you talk about a lot of this in your strip oftentimes about our fascination with celebrities and celebrity culture. And so it wasn't a surprise to me. Plus I spend, or did spend big chunk of my time in Michigan. Obviously, that's where I live. And I have, I've been there in a while, but I saw the rabidness for Trump amongst his supporters, and it didn't feel like it was the majority of Michigan residents, but it was rabid enough to know I knew those people were going to vote. If there was a 10-foot blizzard that day, they were going to vote on election day, and there was no excitement for Hillary Clinton. And I mean, and I'm talking about not from the left, but I'm talking about even in the middle.
Yeah.
Nobody was excited about that. And it's the biggest thing I worry about with Biden is that nobody's going to wake up on election morning and go, oh, I can't wait to get to the polls.
Although, he is not the most exciting candidate, but also it's just become this very weird moment where, like, he can't do rallies. He can't get, what do they call it? Earned media.
Yeah.
He's stuck in quarantine like we all are. I mean, and I'm using the term quarantine loosely. We're obviously not in actual, but we're sort of all in lockdown. And, I don't know. I mean, on the one hand, Trump couldn't be screwing everything up, more obviously if he tried. On the other hand, there have just been so many moments where you think, this time he can't possibly survive this. And then he does, that I don't even know what's going to happen. But it's frightening. It is frightening.
Yeah.
I think at this point, having been through impeachment, having been through these things, I think if he legitimately won or can somehow claim to have legitimately won re-election, I think that is basically the end of whatever, it's the end of democracy as we have known it, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not hyperbole. That's that Trump will take that and run with it for 4 years. That's why the part of me that believes that Biden can pull it off is because I know that the vast majority of Americans, the majority, don't want Trump in there. And a majority of them would crawl through broken glass to remove him.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody listening to this right now, seriously, if I could guarantee you that Trump would be removed from office, but first you personally, listening to this, would have to crawl through broken glass. Can I see a show of hands?
Yeah, I'm in.
I'm in, right? Just get me some Neosporin spray and some Band-Aids. That's all I need afterwards. No, that's the reason that Biden can win. And if the feeling remains that strong, but first there has to be an election, as you said, with the mail thing, that Trump is already thinking about how not to have the election.
And people say, the president has no power to suspend an election. And I just think, that's so adorable.
What?
That's so adorable that you still
think
so
he
cute.
is I love listening to people
constrained by any norm whatsoever.
Yes. No. Every time somebody, like you said, somebody says, the pussy grabbing tape. I remember that night. Oh, that's the end of Trump.
Yeah.
No, there's no end of Trump.
Well, and
literally
that did not end Trump. It would have ended any other politician.
Anybody.
But what I had said from the start with him is that his superpower is that he has no shame whatsoever.
Right.
So a thing that anyone else would have reacted to as a normal human being, he just has no shame. He can just, he eventually denied that it was even him on the tape, but he just plowed through, and it works. He just has no shame.
And I think there's something secretly in a lot of people, most of us, that when we screw up, and we have all screwed up, whether it's at work, whether it's in our relationships, whether it's you name it, we've all screwed up. Wouldn't you, when you see Trump go through the screw up like nothing happened, there's something almost appealing about that. Like, oh, wouldn't that have been, what if I didn't have to go through the shame of what I just did?
I'm not going to agree with you. I'm not going to agree with you there.
Well, no, you wouldn't feel that way.
I see him do this and I'm just appalled. I'm not.
No, you
I'm
are.
not
Yeah, but
envious.
I'm talking about most people, if just think back to something they did. Listen, we were all, when your mom came in and said, where are all the cookies that were in the cookie jar? And you're looking around like, I don't know if you had any siblings, but, that's the ones who really pull it off are the kids who don't have siblings and they're looking around to blame it on a sibling that doesn't exist. it's like the Trump is just so good at what's that old Richard Pryor joke where the he's saying that if your wife accuses you of adultery or whatever, you have to deny it, never admit to it, always deny it, and then so he gives the example of this guy who was really good at this, a Trump-like figure, and his wife comes in and he's in bed with the other woman, and the wife goes, "What is going on here? What is she doing here?" And the guy goes, "Who?" There's nobody here but me and you.
Oh, man.
There's a woman in our bed. Honey, I don't know what's wrong with you right now, but there's nobody here. Who are you going to believe? Me or your own lying eyes?
Right. And these days we call that gaslighting, and Trump is the absolute master of it. And I don't know about you, but what I really resent is how much of my life now I have had to spend thinking about Donald Trump every day. I mean, I think,
that's why you sound this way.
What do you sound what way? What does that even mean? I sound fine.
No, okay, I'm just worried. No, you're my friend. I'm worried. I just, it could be the new microphone. It could be, it's like, no, but it's, I read your strip every week and I'm like, wow, he's like on fire. He's got it. It's no, you're fine. You are fine. And I think in times like this, our sense of humor is something that plus alcohol no, don't do that. Don't do that, folks. No, but that if you maintain your sense of humor in times like this, I believe it can be a huge medicine, a big relief and comfort.
It's also, it's kind of good that it's just my job. Like otherwise, I don't know if I would maintain my sense of humor right now, but I am required to have some kind of semblance of a sense of humor every week. And it's just good to keep that part of the brain active.
Yeah, I need somebody. I don't know what this is again. I don't know if it's the Catholic education or just but I do need somebody with a ruler over my head sometimes. Just to kind of, this is due by 8:00 tonight. And, I try to get, Basil's the executive producer of this endeavor. And, I try to get him to you have to tell me this has to be done by this time. And he's just, I don't know whether he's just too nice or he knows it's a lost cause to get me to finish on a deadline like this. But, and he's, of course he's here, but he's not here in the podcast studio.
Right.
He's at home and he's listening to this right now. But I think he's heard the story about the nuns for too long and he's just refusing to be a Catholic nun.
Maybe Elon Musk could fix you up with like a robot that could do that for you or something.
Oh, see, that would be scary. I would leave the room and lock the door. I wouldn't.
I'm just envisioning.
What if it was Elon Musk? What if Musk himself was here? Holy shit.
Well, we can't do that because of social distancing. I'm just imagining a very simple robot with a ruler attached to the top, and it just whacks you on the head or on the knuckles or whatever your Catholic nuns did when they were scarring you for life as a child.
No, actually, I had really good nuns. I had very progressive nuns, hippie nuns. He had a hippie priest. They were all pretty good. But what if it was Musk? What if social distancing. Let's just say he's out in the other room right now, and I'm just sitting in here and then you hear this voice. You're not recording. I don't hear anything. Please start recording.
So in this scenario, he's some sort of supernatural entity, like you've said his name 3 times, and he appears
partly
in the other
supernatural,
room. He's sort of stalking you.
Yes, but also there was a bit of Dr. Strangelove, I think, in that voice. I don't know. I don't know. Is there? You don't want to go back to normal, really, truly, right? I don't mean personal normal.
Yeah. That's a complicated question, Michael.
I would say even your normal, I would go back to your normal. I would.
But when you say I don't want to go back to normal, you mean in society?
I'm talking about societal, political. How we structure ourselves.
I mean. We're going to have massive unemployment and an ongoing healthcare crisis for at least all of 2020. So normal is not really possible. And normal was kind of what put us in this situation, what, made us vulnerable to a black swan event like this. Normal is not working with income inequality. Normal is not working with our ridiculous healthcare system. Normal and no, I don't want to go back to normal, but I don't, I also, we don't really have a path out, with, Donald Trump and his oligarchs running everything,
You personally don't have an idea of that path out?
Well, not under the conditions as they exist today, as we are talking. I mean,
no, but let's say once we're through the pandemic, so that we don't return to the same old ways. I've been thinking about this a lot.
We need a lot of the stuff that Bernie Sanders was running on. We definitely need universal health care. That should be a fundamental building block of any civilized society. And it's just shocking to me how difficult we've made it in this country. Yeah.
Well, I think we will get some of these things. I think they're already doing it. They're reducing mass incarceration because of the virus.
Well, the thing this has shown us,
we should have been doing that already.
What this has shown us is the argument against all these progressive reforms for so long has been, how will we pay for it? Turns out you can pay for any damn thing you want. You just throw money at it. I mean, how... Let
that be the primary lesson of this pandemic. Yeah. We can afford to pay for any damn thing we want.
So how about nice things like healthcare and whatever else,
Well, no student should be $50,000 to $100,000
right,
in debt.
Forgiving student debt, that's good. But just basic
the minimum
stuff.
wage should be $15 to $20 an hour.
Right, and should always come with healthcare. Should always come with. I mean,
the government should be providing healthcare. Yeah,
but we just need. We need a safety net in the way that we do not have a safety net, and so suddenly this thing hits, and we collectively fell off the high wire that we were barely hanging on to anyway, and there's not a safety net there, and so like all these reforms cannot be coronavirus specific. Like we have to understand that like the next pandemic is going to be worse. Like this is a trial run, and it's a wake up call.
Right. What if you could just wave a magic wand when this is over and do not, I don't mean wave a magic wand to make sure that there's no homeless anymore and people like that or whatever, but just, if you could wave a magic wand post pandemic, what would you want life to look like? And again, I don't necessarily mean that in a political way. I'm saying it too in a personal way. Because I think things are going to be different. I really do. I think it's going to be different personally for a lot of people. And I think it's going to be.
I mean, well, there's all the societal structural things we've just been talking about. But honestly, I miss the world. I miss going out and seeing my friends in person. Like I don't know, I don't know how long it's going to be before really, really simple things like that are going to be possible again.
Can we leave people with any hope today? Can we?
This too shall pass.
That's true, though. It will pass.
At some point, we will be through this. And this is a major thing that I don't know if everyone, I mean, we're here in New York and we're getting whacked. And I don't know the extent to which everyone is really understanding that, like this isn't going to be over in 2 weeks. This isn't going to be over in 2 months. I don't know what it's going to look like or how we're going to cautiously reopen or re-engage or whatever. But this is like, I don't know, a world war breaking out or something. This is a thing that is going to impact every aspect of our lives for a long time. And it kind of happened very suddenly, and it's taking me a while to get my head around that.
Mm. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I should ask this during the podcast, but are you going to stay in New York when you are mobile again?
I miss Michigan. That's a good question. That's a very good question. Yes, I'll definitely want to go back home. My sisters live in California, so obviously I miss them and their kids.
Yeah.
They're all on the West Coast. That's a really good question. The one great thing about this podcast is it can be portable.
Uh-huh.
I've built the studio in the guest bedroom here in New York, in the apartment, and I can build it in Michigan too in a day. So
I mean, I've been thinking about this because, excuse me, if everything I love about living in the city is shut down, then I'm not sure why I would stay in the city.
Right. The reasons that we like to live here when we're here. Right.
If I am literally just staying inside all the time, then I might as well do that somewhere where I can get, a house much cheaper than the price of my apartment.
Where would you go?
I have no idea. I mean, my son is still.
Well, you've seen the country. You've lived in many places.
I have.
But you're right. You have a teenage son.
I have a teenage son.
On the East Coast.
Who lives, a couple hours away, and he's got another year of high school. So for a year, if I decamped, I'd probably go where he is and spend a year there and then figure it out. But I don't know. I mean, I just came back to New York 2 years ago. I've been in a very transitional space of my life to begin with. So a lot of things have been up in the air anyway. And this just makes it more so, except that now everything's up in the air, but I'm stuck in my apartment 24 hours a day. And I'm doing fine, Michael. I'm doing
you
fine.
sound great. No, fuck, you're doing, this is the best time of your life. This is...
I get to watch all the TV I want. I don't, it's like a teenager's dream.
One of the reasons I had the choice to go to Michigan when this was first beginning. The Michigan primary was happening. I was going to go there and vote for Bernie, or stay, in New York, where I had ended up at the end of February. And I decided to stay here. And to be honest, the main reason I thought of not going to Michigan, especially I live in northern Michigan, so I live in a very kind of red part of the state, even though the town I live in is very blue.
Uh-huh.
I didn't want to be around in an area of the country where people have a lot of guns, frankly.
Oh, wow.
I just thought, if society collapses entirely, and people can't eat and they can't get fresh water and they can't get this or that or whatever, I don't want to be the target of their anger.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I just remembered that night you and I were walking down 34th Street or whatever. Do you remember this? We were going to Madison Square Garden to see Pearl Jam.
I do remember
you had done that album cover. You had done their album cover.
Yeah. So this would be like 10 years ago.
Yes. And do you remember what happened? We were walking down the street.
I do remember, but I'm going to let you tell the story.
I don't like telling the story, and any security professional would encourage me not to tell the story, but I don't care anymore. On the other side of the street, somebody shouts out my name, and you and I, we both look over, and he raises his two arms, like he's got a shotgun in his hands, and he does the pump action, and I know you were like in shock. That was only the 100th time somebody had done something like that to me, to tell me that they would love to blow my head off.
Right.
And you said to me, does that happen a lot? And I said, yeah, it's okay. Just keep going. The main thing is he didn't have a gun. He had a pretend gun in his hands. And he kept going. He's not going to come over here and do anything. And that, which is usually the case. They don't usually do anything to me physically, mostly, I guess, out of fear that if they hit me, I'd fall on them. So generally, it's best not to hit me, I think is the word. But that was so that kind of mentality, I felt I'm safer in my New York City apartment building.
Well, the hell of it is.
Am I though? Do people have guns in this building? I don't know.
Yeah, but
I think I'm okay.
It's weird. I want to live in New York. I just want to live in. I want to live in New York. I want New York to recover from this and find a way out of it. And with the understanding that it's going to be a long haul, and there's going to be a lot of restrictions on life. I still love this city, and I don't want to leave it. I've lived here 3 different times in my life, and I came back after, my life kind of fell apart a couple of years ago, and it's been very good to me. I like this city. I like being here. I just, this particular moment is a really rough moment, but I'm not, I think about what other options or what else I might do, but I like New York.
Yeah, I do too. And I like that you're here, and let's commit in front of a few 100,000 witnesses right now.
Wait,
seriously, we have close. We just have to spend more time together.
If we're ever allowed to do these things again, if we're ever allowed to, we have to have other human beings in person. Yeah, we can go somewhere with a really long dinner table and sit 12 feet apart.
We have to
shout at each other. Maybe have a little intercom system or something.
It won't be that bad. We'll do that. I'm glad that you're a friend. Well,
thank you.
Yeah. Well,
you too.
On a personal level and also on a creative level, that I have a brother, I have a fellow traveler.
Yes, absolutely.
Who tries to handle the world that we're in through some humor and also some will to beat back all that is all that we're up against.
Yeah,
and I believe that can happen. As sure as I believe this virus will be over, that will happen. And the people listening to this right now, they know it too. They're ready. They're chomping at the bit to get going, starting with the first job, staying alive, everybody keep doing that. And then secondly, get rid of Trump. And then finally, most importantly, probably once you live, if you're able to live, is let's get rid of that which gave us Trump. Those parts of the system.
Right. That's a super important point.
That's Trump, to me, I keep stressing.
Trump is a monster, but Trump is a symptom. Trump did not appear out of a vacuum.
He did not fall out of the sky. And he will be gone, and that which gave us him will also be gone, and it will be replaced with a more loving and compassionate system. I'm convinced of that. I know, I can tell it's what people want. and those who don't agree with us, we'll be kind to them too. We'll make sure that their health bills are covered and they don't have to pay for them. We'll make sure that their kids can go to college and not have to worry about the money. We'll do all the things we're going to do. We're going to do for the people that we disagree with too.
Yeah, that sounds lovely.
Dan, thank you so much.
Michael, thank you
being part of my podcast.
No, it's fun.
I hope you start a podcast one of these days and invite me on because
we'll do that. Maybe I will just have a 1-episode podcast.
Right. Yes, it began and ended with Michael Moore as my guest. Don't ask me about it. But thank you very much, everybody who's listening to this. I've been talking to Dan Perkins, aka Tom Tomorrow. His incredible cartoon strip, which is called This Modern World, can be found every Monday on the Daily Kos and every Tuesday on the Nib and on his website, thismodernworld.com. And you can find it on my podcast platform page here.
And I'm on Twitter.
You're on Twitter. Yes, he is definitely on Twitter.
Yeah, way too much, but at Tom Tomorrow.
At Tom Tomorrow. That's easy. Always had a hard time when I was a child with the word tomorrow, trying to spell it. Probably didn't feel like there was much of one to hope for. But that's another podcast. But seriously, thank you.
All right, my friend. Thank you.
Keep doing what you're doing. Yeah.
Thank you.
And everybody out there, you keep at it too. Start drawing if that's what you've been wanting to do. No one can stop you now. You're in your home. You can draw whatever the fuck you want. So do that. And I'll talk to you real soon here on Rumble with Michael Moore.